Time sync at the tick was UTC 2025 September 5 at 19 hours 3 minutes and 25 seconds.
Okay. So what that was was a terrible robot voice providing a tick, a time sync clapper on this video, so that if we make any time-based assertions or responses to information in this call, then they can be registered against that clapper.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. Sorry, it wasn't working right on my phone for some reason. Hello.
Is that your app or someone else's?
I just made it yesterday, realizing that that it was a service that people were not using, that it was a tech that could help us all manage to coordinate for future Federation commentary against calls.
Yeah. And what time zone did you use?
GMT.
Okay.
Yeah, just global.
Well,
why mess around? It's global.
What, GMT?
GMT.
Mean time? Well, Zulu time is more global.
Sorry, it was UTC actually.
Oh, okay.
It's lovely to meet another time nerd. Yes.
Well,
I love Zulu.
I'm a software engineer, and I've had a lot of bugs happen because something's an hour off or 30 minutes off. So yes, UTC. That's where I get.
UTC is the only time zone. Yes.
Zulu was the vernacular we used when I was taking flying lessons.
So it's a very humble little app, but basically all it is, timesync.app. Feel free to use it. So it just speaks that it makes a tick at the top of the second and then pronounces the 2-second accurate time that was, so that can appear in transcripts, and if we want, it could appear in video as well.
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
The problem is, in a Zoom call, you have no way to guarantee that the sound is coming from that service and not from a service with a doctored time.
Oh, well, yeah, that's the next order of problem. First, we should attempt to. I'm just trying to solve the first order of problem of that. This whole matter of calls happen in this timeless zone, right? So who knows when a call starts? Who knows when it was, right? And so there are these floating things in space-time that we can't register other events against, such as in commentary, right?
No, but you're absolutely right. Like, a lot of cameras have an automatic timestamp. I don't know if videos have that property, and they should. Provided it's not doctored, it can be doctored in both cases. But
yeah,
how difficult would it be for the camera to have a signing key, and then the timestamp would hash the time and the picture, so you could authenticate.
We should talk about this not on video.
Why not?
For patenting purposes, my dear friend. Yeah.
But
it
seems like is this the like kind of fake news type problem of people? Yeah, to me that was always like the solution is blockchain. Like every piece of media should just be hashed and stuck in a blockchain where you can't. At least that is a trusted record of when. Not maybe when it happened, but when it got into the blockchain, right? But if you automate hashing and sticking into a blockchain, and in theory it happens.
Somebody created a blockchain service for exactly that use case, by the way. I'm trying to remember what it is, but it exists.
Well,
It's a place you can send your media and it will timestamp, yes, I received it at this time.
I mean, the reality is that essentially any blockchain with a latency that's satisfactory is one that one can essentially, you know, dump a hash onto, and yeah, whatever. I mean, that there's an old service on what is it, the New York Times, that's been running for how long is it? 30 years or something like that, where a hash gets published. Is it every Friday or something, that is a summary hash, essentially of a bunch of other hashes. I don't know the name of the thing, and I've never seen it, but I've heard about it. Such an image registering by hash mechanism would be pertinent not only for fake news, but also for the whole AI fakery issue, right? That the way to one way to get around this fake media, whether it's bad news or whether it's AI BS, is for us to have a custody chain all the way from the source hardware.
So, by the way, I did not find that tool I was talking about. I'm trying to remember what it is, but I found somebody tackled the hash the timestamp issue. So no, Reuters has something. So no,
Oh,
we won't
Reuters
get
has a
that
tool?
as a tool.
Yeah. Is it also onto a blockchain? Or
It's not.
is it just a hash of the
Yeah, I'm still trying. It's
yeah.
this one is a blockchain based, yes.
Mm.
And I agree. This is, I mean, basically notarization is pretty much the only real blockchain use. Uh, I think, but it is a valid blockchain use.
So does anyone want to have any updates they want to give about what they've been doing since our last?
Yeah, I'll get there. We should do a roundtable. Last month, I went to the IJCAI International Joint Conference in AI. There was a workshop on democracy and AI, and I presented my paper on democracy and AI, which got best presentation. Unfortunately, I cannot send the paper around until I have a DOI, so that'll be 2-3 months. What I will do is re-record myself giving the presentation when I have a moment and send that around until then. So that's just me touting the points of course, I was making a point about we need a repository for ideas and decisions and why we take decisions. And it's not exactly CDL. I do quote the CDL in the paper. I do quote quite a few people here. But I do make the point that we need basically a common knowledge base for this. So that's one little thing I did. Still active with discourse graphs and hoping to get more people like they're working right now on totally side issues, but I am beginning to advance on, okay, what would be the protocol for federation? So I have a little preliminary thing to talk about federation if you're interested, like how I see the federation protocol. This third thing I wanted to say, what was it? Oh, we're preparing possibly a workshop. I hope there will be invitations, possibly for big organizations, but nonetheless, let's see how much we can get others involved. There was a third thing, which I'm forgetting. It'll come back.
The focus of that? What's the
What?
agenda of that? What would be the agenda of that convening?
It would be about more in the science space, but it's about having having a federated micro statements like nanopubs with attribution, but making it a bit more open in terms of format than just nanopub. So we'd have federated scientific assertions. I mean, basically what Discourse Graph is doing helping people reason at the assertion level in their internal practice. And Nanopub is about publishing micro assertions. So the question is, can we use that to make the whole exchange around scientific micro assertion, make a faster exchange loop and a faster sharing ecosystem around that? So that would be
so the
prototyping
stuff that we
that
talk about all the time. Yeah.
pretty much.
Yeah.
The third thing is not coming back to mind now. I'm a bit tired, so I'll let others go around and it will come back, I'm sure.
Yeah, I can give an update. I haven't done anything, and I won't for several more months unless my health gets amazingly better suddenly. So all my energy is going to that. So basically it. Anybody
Sorry
else?
to hear it.
I went from Insight to app in an hour or two there yesterday with that silly time sync app. I was just thinking deeply into this whole matter of yeah, how to do pragmatic things in the near term that can support massive federation and fine-grained responsiveness to media to calls in particular, because yeah, it's my sense that we're throwing all these pearls on the ground right now. I mean, they're going into video, and the video is making it onto the YouTube, but there's just so much potential that we're leaving unaccessed, and I'm trying to figure out the most pragmatic ways to maximize that potential leverage over.
This is extremely important. We're all doing our things, telling our things in our little things, in our channels, personal channels. The whole point of this space is to have community sharing about these issues, and it's good that we're doing that. It would be nice to be a bit more systematic about it. Hello, David. We're doing the rounds right now and bemoaning the fact that this is a nice informal gathering, but we need to have I don't think that's what you said exactly, but let me translate it to something Jack and I say often: transforming flows to stocks. We each have our own output as a flow of, oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. When can we take the time to say, okay, this is output, that is a stock, that is something that we can say, okay, we're behind this much. We did a big effort towards that when we did the Maps Map response, the one pager. It took us a ridiculous amount of energy to get this one pager out. It's extremely dense. It was actually a bit of a watershed moment for the community in that it took so much energy. We did collapse for a little while after that, I find. There was less energy. We were meeting more often before that paper. Hope we've all recovered. But we need to think of a way to have a community output and acknowledge the fact that we're not the only community and that we need to have more ways to exchange with other communities on that topic. But the question of how to get our voice, unified voices out of our distinct efforts is absolutely paramount. Over.
For clarity, I was meaning the species that as you call them stocks, these and I would call them these morasses of natural language that we fling into video streams, that humankind is basically doing a whole bunch of transient, ephemeral ideating and outgassing in a low quality modality, and for us to make it through the singularity, we need to up level so that we're actually behaving able to behave more formally and essentially thinking in scale at real time, because we're dealing with exponential hazard. Over.
Uh,
I'm trying to solve
Violent
that problem.
agreement.
But yes, of course. Yes. And also we need to get on the same page and be a collective collaborative force, or else humanity's best hope, i.e., the collaboration nerds, are themselves going to be wasting their energies. So
Exactly. We need to show by example what such collaboration can look like.
Yep. Sean, you kind of mentioned stocks in the same phrase as information being kind of just thrown out there. And that's, I think, using the term slightly different from the way Mark and Delana were using it, or unless I'm understanding it. That'd be more like a flow. A stock is more like a document of condensed information. So that's right.
It's a continuum, I think. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
there's the pure flow, which is conversation, right? Which is totally ephemeral and totally in
Pretty
the
much kind of
moment.
like unrecorded information, right?
Oh yeah, that's even further. And then you try to make it into more and more, it's all the progressive structuration, right? You try to make it into a unit that is intelligible as a whole. You don't need to refer to the whole conversation to understand this much, and the unit becomes a solid thing. And that can take the form of a document. But the problem is documents are also islands. They're micro stocks that way, as opposed to the dream of a grand interrelated semantic network, which is the ultimate stock because it's the thing we're all building. And everything we contribute to, all the flows aggregate into this accessible stock of information we can all consult and contribute to the building of. Now, of course, it's totally utopian as stated, and it's what we're trying to build. But more seriously, it's a continuum between the perfect theoretical, perfectly accessible whole of information, always growing, always maximally clear and curated, and the ephemeral information in the making flow. Now, documents are somewhere on that spectrum and closer to the what Jerry would call the fungus than to conversations. But it's
yeah.
still only a point on the continuum.
But I really object to Jerry's use of that word because it already has a meaning, right? And so it doesn't, it's semantically kind of, and from a brand perspective, kind of a useless moniker. It's
All
and-
words
But
have a meaning.
yeah,
Jack,
but
not
that's
all
also why it hasn't gone anywhere, and I think he recognizes that. He just likes it, but I don't think he's trying to use it as a term for marketing anymore.
Yeah,
well, that's one of the projects that we need to be able to take on collectively, right? Is converging on terminology that successfully identifies the reality of the thing that we're trying to build together, right?
Jack, what would you have?
so semantics in this conversation is being fun. Consider this. Right now, we're in flow mode. We're gabbing at each other and in some cases listening, in some cases not so much, but there's flows. But there's this machine called a recorder that is capturing the flows into a stock that will go up to YouTube. So YouTube is now, the big container, the water tank of all of our flows captured as a stock, and we can go and watch them and they become flows again. Just like if you opened the valve on a water tank, But I think that when Marc Antoine and I talk about stocks, it's not so much a container of flows, but rather a container of formalized recordings and interpretations and worldviews that have been harvested from flows. That's how, at least in my view of what a stock is. It's something that has a higher use than just a whole bunch of old white guys gabbing at each other in a chat room.
It's what I might in the non-academic world or whatever call a work product.
A
It's
work
something you
product
put
is a good
effort
one.
into a form to communicate better to other people or consolidate what you've worked on together.
Tim, that's beautiful. I like it.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
it's
It's the
after all the
curation.
back and forth. What do you kind of decide? What do you kind of what settles? Is that the idea? It's like
Totally, totally. At some point, we had the metaphor, Jack and I, of nuggets being extracted from a river, but then we went with actually logs. You take the logs that flow down the river and you build a cabin. That's the that's the that's the cabin is the stock. We've taken all the everything that came out of the conversation and we built something that's more or less coherent. It's a curation that makes the stuff. Now, it's
No,
true that I like the distinction. There's the frozen flows, like the fact that we record the flows, and yeah, that makes them a stock in some way. We have a stock of frozen flows, and there's the work products. That's something else. That's like the cabin metaphor, and that's a curated whole that's intelligible without like the problem with flows is to understand what we've said. We'd have to listen to the whole conversation. That takes too long. You want to say,
yeah.
okay, what were the key key highlights, key outcomes of that conversation. And then there's the dream of a unified stock, the grand semantic network, which may be distinct, maybe it's a third thing, and it's true. It's good to be distinct, to be specific about this.
I'd submit that what we do as humans, I'll say it again, what we do as humans is we're trying to knit together our private mental models. That's what we're trying to do. And so in this, one-on-one, that's the highest, that's the highest order of effectiveness in that process, because the two people can handshake, they don't get interrupted by a third party introducing their own confusions and having their own needs to be heard, etc. But one-on-one, what happens is that people can handshake back and forth, ask for clarity, blah blah blah. And if they are sharing the objective of trying to perform, in effect, a mind meld, a commingling of their private mental models, then that can be an extremely successful process. Now, in any other context but the one-on-one mind meld, then in effect people are still trying to do the same thing ultimately, but with noise in conversation with multi-parties, then in effect there's more noise, there's more interruption, there's more agenda, there's more different
More
people.
noise and more content, right? I
There-
see that.
there can be different people playing different language games, right? So there can be people who are there for marketing purposes. There can be people who are there for, right? So the
Like I
concern,
might only be
no,
interested in one part of a meeting. Like there might sometimes
yeah,
like it's very often you get invited to a meeting at work or whatever, and you really only care about the one aspect that relates to you, but
yeah,
you have to sit through the whole thing. And even if there's a whole bunch of people in the meeting, even if it is related to you, there's a lot of waiting for to until you get to submit your idea. Anyway, sorry, Jack.
yeah. Totally. That's another aspect of why, other than one-on-one, is less perfect, right? And then finally, what are documents? Documents are when we try to engage in effort. We engage in the effort of attempting to produce an artifact that conveys a bunch of mental model and tries to, cover its ground by disambiguating, by referring to sources and definitions and so on, so that it can try to be a standalone artifact in a broadcast modality where the generator of the artifact is sharing that artifact, publishing that artifact, so that a bunch of people might be able to have their private mental models affected. Okay. And so I would submit that that humanity is in the transition from this private mental model hell to a merged mental model heaven, where in effect what a merged mental model is an externalization into a semantic repository of not a bunch of presentations in natural language, but rather a semantic repo in the cloud, distributed, blah, 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 federated, whatever. Okay, but it's this hyper object that is the semantic intertwingling and superposition of everybody's externalized private mental models to the extent that they want to share them. So I think that's what we're doing. And so is transiting from the natural language domain to the merged mental model domain.
Yes.
Yeah, I was about to bring that up of externalizing that mental model to some sort of document. And to take it one step further, the piece that I'm focusing on is the kind of the evaluation model that to also externalize the kind of the mathematics of the evaluation models we're using, or an idealized form of those. I think is important, not just to have the conclusions and the reasons for the conclusions, but how they add up to come to those conclusions for things that have conclusions. Not all externalized semantic models have conclusions, but for those that do, anyways. I was afraid when you were talking about two people getting the same mental model that you were going to stop there, but as long as we're going to something, some documentation of that, then sure.
A critical part of it, you use the word document as the embodiment of the merged mental model. I would submit that the key thing is really that there's a shared address space. A shared address space. That does not mean that it has to be on a single machine or gated by some individual single point of failure minting process for the identifiers or any such.
No, just documentation. How it exists is not meaning, something external to the human brain. That's all I meant by that word.
Yeah. So for me, the issues are more about about those old legacy resources and how we're trying to transit to a new world of the MMM over.
Jack?
So first of all, I have a meta observation that this tribe is so filled with people so passionate about what they want to say and get it out before anybody else that they don't follow the rules of civil discourse. If somebody raises their hand, you don't start a conversation before they've had their chance. But secondly, it's clear to me that if I translate the merged mental model into the simple idea of some agent sitting in real time, listening to our conversation and generating an IBIS dialogue map, that's the first order level of a merged mental model, because you get to see the conversation and the many threads which exist based on the questions and the answers. There's very little debate in this group, even though it's the CDL. We're more about expressing ideas and not so much debating them, but occasionally questioning for clarity. So this is a conversation. And the branches of the tree represent how the mental models go in different directions. And having a tree means you don't have to sit and listen to the entire hour-long video to hear what we said. You can see it in a tree that you can glance at very quickly. Over.
We were going to do we were doing a round at some point, and Tim left before having his turn. David, you didn't get to just say, is there anything new in the past since we last met?
Um,
That-
not not especially. I'm still chugging along, I'm still making progress. Um, and I've had, yeah, maybe I have some new idea. Yeah, there might be some ideas that about the app that I've been making that I've been thinking about more recently. Or like things that I'm like excited about uh potential. Um, yeah, I guess for example, yeah, I'm making a more or less one-on-one debate app. Um, and I was uh, there's the issue with I guess reading the white paper and everything, I was like, well, there's a couple things that are not um that are kind of issues with my app, for example. And one is it's the canonicality of it. It's not, it's like the opposite. And then, but I have been thinking about ways to address that, or ways to just have a really, somewhere down the line, have just like a really good like linking system. And then with the other issue is that it it's like being one-on-one, it is very like you're battling another person. So it doesn't feel like uh
Constructive.
yeah, and also I feel like you people can vote on the different points. And so it, it's I there is issues like, are people going to be is it going to make like when people are gonna, the idea is people would go there because they they know somebody, they like somebody who's arguing, and they want to support them and suggest points for them. But but then the whole idea is, you want people to think, be open-minded about both sides and not just go away like rooting for their person. You want them to really consider. And I think at one point, just going to any debate, you are, some people are going to be more open-minded than other people, but I think just seeing points, being exposed to points is a good start. And then secondly, this idea that I kind of it's been a long way getting there, a lot of context here, but an idea that I've had is to be able to see, to be able to visualize for each point, like see the votes of like how many people liked a point and how many people didn't like a point. Um, but at some point implement a way where you can visualize how many, you break down those counts so that you can see of the people that you can kind of filter down to only see the people that uh, voted supporting both sides somewhat evenly, or filter out the people that were only one-sided. And in that way, that kind of can encourage people, when it's being tracked, how one-sided they are. It can encourage people to like vote on one point positively, you know, like different side, like just be more open to different points on different sides of a debate. So, and it's more complicated, you know, it's definitely a lot more complicated to, oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm
No, no,
gonna
no,
go
no, no, no.
on. But yeah, it's more complicated to implement it like this. And I have, you know, that it's on my to-do list. It's not implemented yet, but because it's more of like a, you know, once as people continue to vote, you need to recalculate all the statistics for all the points. So uh it would be some kind of job running every once in a while that calculates all the breakdown of each point, how many one-sided people like the point and how many open-minded people like the point. Anyway, I don't know if that makes sense. Also, yeah, people, you would be trying to imagine my debate app at the same time, but go ahead.
Yeah, of course, it depends on what use case you're trying to solve. Uh, just a few pointers. What you're talking about is discussion analytics. I should direct you to the work of Mark Klein on, he's done a lot of work on what are interesting indicators about people's behavior in a conversation, how does the conversation behave? I'll send you a few pointers. Second,
Okay, yeah.
I find a lot of uh, votes for me are moderately interesting, but we need to distinguish, in my view, you need to distinguish matter of facts from matter of preference. When you're speaking about matter of facts, it is interesting to know how many people believe or disbelieve, if it's a contentious fact, and so on. But the votes don't matter to the truth. It is important to know that a true or false fact is believed or disbelieved by a lot of people. That's totally worth recording. But the question is the soundness of the argument, the soundness of the evidence. Like what Sean started with is, do we have a way to hash that this picture was really taken at this time? This is much more important than is this a sound reasoning and so on, as opposed to matters of preference, which are vaguely arbitrary. Though again, in a democracy, the question of do people prefer to decide things through reasoning and discussion, or do they actually believe that decisions should be taken by brute strength? That's a question, and it's a question that frames the whole value of the debate. I don't mind people being one-sided on this one. The two-sidedness is in matters of in moral issues is not necessarily a bad thing. It's integrity. I call it integrity. In other issues, one-sidedness, two-sided openness to other points of view is absolutely valuable and important. It's and knowing that there are domains where openness is important and where it's detrimental. So I did start asking what's the use case, but the believing in the value of conversation as a way to achieve not necessarily truth but mutual understanding is, for me, that's not something I want people to be both-sided about, as opposed to deciding through raw power, because that's a bit of what's happening right now. Anyway, that was my 2 cents on in what context is a certain indicator valuable or not. In SenseCraft, we're thinking a lot about how to give people encouraging signals for listening, for trying to reframe what the other person is saying in a way that is, more precise and not a straw man, but more steel man their opponent's view, and how to encourage that behavior or encourage synthesis. That's part but we're designing a game. It's not the same as we can have artificial rewards in a game that we can't in a political debate, for example. But I'm just saying these are the kind of considerations. I'll try to get the Klein article while others weigh in.
Sean, you're muted.
Yeah, does somebody else want to, I guess people have their hands raised. I can just,
Yeah. What stack are you using? What languages are you familiar with? And what's your kind of
I'm
coding?
doing, I'm doing it all. It's
Oh.
like JavaScript. I'm doing like the, um, basically Mern stack, Mongo, Express, React Node. And the Mongo is just fairly I'm like a front end developer. And so the back end stuff is a little new to me, but someone had said, well, it's nice to have everything. Since you're familiar with JavaScript, why don't you just do JavaScript the whole way? So I just went with that. It's been going okay, and I've been learning a bit and also using AI, or someone has suggested Cursor, and that's been helping me a little bit with the back
Okay.
end, but I'm trying to be care careful with the review, carefully review the changes.
David, listening to you talk, I actually like what you said. But I will share with you this. You reminded me of Polis. Are you familiar with Polis?
Mm-mm. Sounds a little
POL,
familiar.
POL.is. That's its
Okay.
URL. And it's kind of a polling mechanism,
Oh yeah.
not framed as a debate. And it's open source and it's written in Clojure. And it was used in Taiwan and in various places here in the colonies, and to enormous effect.
Huh.
And there is a website called plurality.net, which has a free downloadable PDF of the book about it.
Hmm.
One of the co-authors being Audrey Tang, who was the Minister of Information or something like that in Taiwan when those studies were done. And she's kind of become the global rock star of a new kind of democracy and civil discourse. And you're orbiting in that same space. So it's worth you knowing about it. Now, I say the PDF is free. I donated $50 because it's a foundation and they do need support. Obviously, I could have gone and bought the 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 Kindle for $6 or something like that. But no, I really want to support the people doing this. But what I'm saying is they don't use the word debate, because when you say debate, the mental model that comes with it is somebody gets to win and somebody gets to lose. And what their kind of a polling mechanism is it says, just here's a probe about some topic. What are you thinking? And you write a statement. That's what you do. And then people get to vote up or down.
Mhm.
And then back in the background, they cluster the votes against the probe. And people get to go and look at the clusters and where they fell and begin to rethink not only their votes, but their statements.
Hmm.
So it's a kind of civil conversation without being in your face.
Hmm. That's interesting. Yeah. I'll
It,
gotta check it
it's
out.
it's kind of called roundless polling because it just opens a window. There's no rounds. You can play all you want, come back a day later, whatever. When the window closes, it's over. And so there's a second roundless polling platform that's called Real-Time Delphi. Now you can look up Delphi. The Delphi method has a good Wikipedia page, but the kind of a simplified TLDR is that Delphi has these wizards. that pose a question. And then they take a bunch of anonymous responses. And what they do is they sort them and find the outliers. And when they find the outliers, they restructure the next question. This is rounds, not roundless,
Yeah.
where they're really trying to probe the outliers
Hmm.
to push them back to the middle. And if they can't push them back to the middle, those outliers have something of interest. Okay, well, real-time Delphi simply gives you a whole web page full of probes and lets you agree or disagree on a sliding scale. But then they let you go in for each probe and your response, that you go into a separate room where you get to say why. I
Oh, yeah.
disagreed with this because blah, blah, blah. But in that room, you can see the other statements on that probe. So again, another conversation that's civil, not in your face. You get to see what other people said, and you get to rethink what you're doing. Maybe you go back and change your answer. Maybe you change your response to the probe, etc. So and so I'm claiming you're orbiting in that same space. I'm just trying to open your mind.
Yeah. What is the last one you were talking about called?
Real-time Delphi,
Real-time Delphi. Okay, never heard
RT
of that.
Delphi. And in fact, there are a few GitHub repos on RT Delphi. I haven't looked at them. I don't know anything about their quality. I am very familiar with the origin story of RT Delphi, and its inventor. And I've gone into several of they're run by the Millennium Web, the Millennium Project. I've gone into several of their probes on the future of education and so on and so forth. And I wrote, in fact, in some of those responses, one of my responses was that education was broken, and that landed me a free trip to Korea to talk to a convention.
Oh,
And you know, people said, "My God, you got this far out idea. You're the outlier we want to hear from."
hmm.
So what I'm saying is, I really salute what you're doing. I'm not sure I salute the use of Mongo, but
Oh, yeah. Well, this is coming from someone who just doesn't know anything about
well,
package.
so
But it's
let
got it's started. It's persisting data now, so that's
yeah,
relief.
so let me give you the pitch that Marc Antoine would probably give you, and I'm not channeling him in the sense of putting words in his mouth, but I speak from years of working with Marc Antoine, so here it goes. The backside is as important as the front side.
Sure.
And the backside serves more than just persisting data to paint the front side. It's there for analytical purposes and for federation, for sharing. In other words, you're building a platform that we would like to have in our knowledge federation, epistemic community ecosystem. And so, and Mongo's just not up to that task.
Oh, okay.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Let me offer a quick counterpoint to that, is that you're kind of in the prototyping stage, and I think that you're probably going to rewrite this in a year or two. So I would not spend the time learning the back end if you're just experimenting with UI front ends.
And I would counter Bentley's delightful counter with this, respectfully, Bentley. There is this thing called sunk cost. You put a certain amount of effort into a platform. It's also called technical debt. And you get so far into it and people are liking it and you're having so much fun. Trust me, when you try to unwind a Mongo backside, and I'm speaking from personal experience,
Yeah.
it's a bitch. It's better to just go ahead and suck it up and take the time. And you're in a group of people who, for example, are familiar with Postgres and will be happy to coach you
Yeah.
in some ways. And there are plenty. Marc Antoine is probably the 10th Dan black belt on this.
Yeah,
And
and I am a big Postgres person, but I don't want to say Postgres versus Mongo. I think it's important, but I don't, and I don't think it is. What I really think is important, it's that architecture. Think of you have. My big flag that I'm waving is not a Postgres flag; it's the event sourcing flag. We have keep the events, keep the individual events of this happened and this happened and this happened. And then here's a computation that provides a view from these events that says, okay, here's the statistics of who did what. Here is, and that is a computed view from the events. It's not how these events are stored, that can change. But make sure that you're not tied to a database architecture where all you have is the view that you've computed as events come and that you've lost the events, because it should be possible to scrap your view, scrap your computation, and rerun the computation on your event archive. That is what gives you flexibility to scrap everything. Whether you've stored those events here, there, those can be moved. Whether you've computed the events here, there, it's not that difficult to recompute in a different platform as long as you keep the events. So if I'm going to make a religious statement, it's not Mongo versus Postgres, though I think Postgres has benefits and I think Mongo has drawbacks, but Mongo also has benefits and Postgres has drawbacks. But what's really important is keep the events. Over.
Yeah, I strongly endorse that. Basically, it can be as simple, though this isn't ideal, but it could be as simple as a file that you just keep putting JSON objects, streaming JSON objects onto the tail end of, where those are the incoming writes, and that's even an acknowledged file format. Yeah, I can't remember what it's called, but
JSON-L, I think.
stream of JSON or some bloody thing. I don't
I'm
remember.
not, I guess you're kind of like, it's because at first I was like, well, I was thinking I am doing that, but then I'm not real, like, there's certain, basically like the events from like, there's two debaters and then there's a lot of people like adding commenting and like, they can kind of like and dislike. And so everything that the two debaters are doing, I'm keeping those events just so there's like this history of everything, every like official point. But like in terms of like the comments and the likes and dislikes, there those if someone likes a certain version of a point and then dislikes it, I'm not keeping that. So I don't know how, when you're giving that recommendation, how like what's the word, like
Pervasive.
absolute you are talking, but like
I,
I'm keeping
I,
more stuff than most, but I'm not absolutely keeping everything.
I'm actually recommending keeping everything.
Okay, yeah.
Because of course there's a cost to it, of course, but
Yeah, that's
storage
what it
cost is
seems.
not the highest cost these days.
Yeah.
And knowing what is hard is if you have a state that's constructed from edit events, do you want to keep every keystroke? Do you want to keep, do you want to keep every snapshot? Because really what's valuable is at the time the person liked this was what it looked like. And at the time the person then disliked, here's what it looked like. So you could keep snapshots or you could keep all the edit events. And here there's trade-offs, and I'm not absolute about this. But I think it is important to know it was liked in this state, it was disliked in this state, one way or another, because this is actually hugely valuable insight, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
So yeah, I think for the most part, I am. I mean, I've been trying to keep that in mind the whole time, like thinking like it would be nice, like some time down the line, I would like to have, like when you were talking about the flow and the stock or whatever you want to call it. I was kind of thinking it's kind of like the flow is like this whole history. I want to at some point have a way to view the debate and then just like scroll through history and see it like you would like a normal two-person debate, go back and forth and say this, and then they argue this point and then they change their mind and then they edit. So you could see, oh, this is where they edited this, and maybe even like just on this branch of the debate, be able to see, okay, this is the history from the beginning of that branch of the debate to the end, and just kind of scroll through the befores and afters. But then also be able to just view the final product, and so you don't waste everyone's time with the back and forth.
Jack, and then I have something to say to that.
So to me, it sounds like you're talking about a journaling database. A journal is a timeline sequence of your thoughts. And it could be a group sequence, in other words, a debate collection. But you said something that I want to probe.
Mhm.
You said somebody edits their position. Why?
Well, presumably there was a counterpoint that they were responding to. Most of the time, I would imagine, or a lot of the time, I would imagine that would be the case.
But if
yeah.
you edit a position and somebody's made a counterpoint, then that invalidates the counterpoint.
Yeah, so that's a whole thing I have.
So in SenseCraft, once the guild has put a game move out in the conversation tree, it's no longer editable.
Yeah.
So it's internal to the guild to decide what will stay no matter what defenses come. So a guild, in theory, will have role players who are internally trying to challenge the game move.
Yeah.
And so what I'm saying is that what I'm speaking for myself more than Marc-Antoine, but I think borrowing from Marc-Antoine, we encourage collaboration, which means we think it's okay if you change your mind and make a new game move that says, I want, that is a child of your first game move saying, I have changed my mind and here's why.
It's the terrible tension between changing the mind, like changing your vote is not as big a deal, but saying, oh no, I'd reformulate this, which is fine. It's important because maybe it was badly formulated in the first place and you want to make it more precise. That's great. But you are changing it. And people reacted to this version and their reaction might change to the next version. Is it the same idea when it's reformulated? And that's the really difficult. What is the idea? It's not the formulations. And this is what I said. The difference between the idea and the formulation, it's part of what has been an endless debate at CDL, right? What is the canonical form? Is there a canonical form of an idea, given that it has many expressions that may or may not be the same? And there's contention about whether are these two expressions of the idea the same idea? I think so. You don't. So that's negotiated. And this is where it gets
of how
it's a
similar.
spectrum. It's a contentious, and I'm saying that this is fine. This is the reality of things. Are these things the same? Is a debated point. That's also it's also a point of debate, and it's also part of the debate. Are we saying the same thing or not? And so, on the one hand, it's very important to be able to have kind of two views. One is the event-based snapshot. This is what I responded to, how it was expressed at this moment, and if you propose a new version, I might react differently to that. Or maybe my mind changes even about this expression. As you point out, I heard a counter argument that convinced me, I'll change my vote. That happens.
Yeah.
And they're saying when you I want to see the evolution of this idea. And I want to see how does this idea, which on the one hand is a snapshot, on the other hand, it's a snapshot in the evolution of something that gets co-negotiated, co-constructed by everybody's conversation.
Yeah.
Which is also this is also a valid perspective, the kind of cross-time evolutionary perspective on the idea is no less valid than this was a snapshot perspective. They're complementary. They're perspectives. There's
Yeah.
up to a point.
Well, I appreciate, these are all things that I enjoy people getting into the weeds with this, because these are all things that I spend a long time kind of thinking about, and they're tricky. And I
They're tricky.
appreciate, and it's good that other people are appreciating the trickiness, because I was like, this is tricky. And I did come to very similar conclusions, I think. And I feel like my
That's
uh
good to hear.
yeah. Um I have a way I handle it, and I am there's a couple things I haven't totally decided. I can point you to, let me it's so also I now have my app kind of like hosted in a public place that nobody goes to because nobody knows the address, but it's public. And I don't have authentication. I don't have like that's like on the near upcoming things I want to do is get authenticated, users and that kind of stuff, either like Firebase or Auth0 or whatever. But like right now, you can just switch users and be whatever you want. So just a heads up. But I'll put the link. I'll put a link to this is that's a debate on the title. It was similar. It's called "This App Needs to Allow Editing Points." This debate shouldn't let you edit points. And I have yeah.
That,
So it is.
it's exactly the question, isn't it?
Yeah, even though
And
I'm sure some of the points that are made in this little debate are different angle than
and
you would think.
a conversation Jack and I are having. Sorry, Jack. I'll try to be quick. Is on the one hand, we need to keep the history of the orders in which the moves are created, and that's a view. And that means if you're changing your mind, you need to create a new object saying, this is my updated view, I've done this. And on the other hand, it's good to have a synthetic view, which says these are the current main views on this, and you just look at the latest versions because you don't care so much, like you want to just get a synthetic, what's the end result of the conversation, what are the remaining views in the debate,
Yeah.
without being burdened with the history. And this is the transformation of flow to stock, really. It's part of the transformation of flow to stock. It's giving the atemporal view versus the accretive temporal view. Jack.
So, David, your website is very clean. It looks good.
Yes.
Yeah. Front end developer. So there you go.
Well, and you're hired. You know what I'm saying?
Thank you.
Yeah,
I've been tweaking it for a while, and I feel like that's one of its strong points. I mean, I think I'm very proud of it in general, even though it's got a lot more to go. But definitely, I think one of its strengths is I tried to make it look nice and be easy to use. You can also use you can use arrow keys to get around it, or on a phone, I have some ways I was trying to make it easy to use. So that's another thing that I think that, is a plus about it.
So I have
Why does it rotate? What does it mean?
Uh, I will answer that, but Jack, sorry.
Sorry.
Should I answer that first or?
Answer that, and then I have a few comments.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, the rotation thing, it could. Okay, so the reason it rotates is because it's always going from left to right, and I wanted in the beginning for it to show all the supporting points on the two sides at once. So then if you go to the other person's main supporting points, it's gonna start you off going left to right still. There's some ways where it's like it would be, I think that can be confusing to users. So I could easily kind of scrap the rotation, but then a lot of people get very excited about the rotating because it's so like kind of snazzy, and they really like, well, don't get rid of that. That's the coolest part. So I
My
think
question is not
UI,
snazzy, is what's the semantics? What does it mean when I go from one to the other? Am I changing sides? That's what it suggests?
yeah, it means that you're then looking at the other person's starting points and you're going
That's what
from
I
there.
thought.
Yeah.
Okay, good. That's what I wanted to confirm. Over. Sorry, Jack.
So here is a way to deal with flexibility in coupling to the backside. And it's called interface programming. And in pure JavaScript, I don't think you have it, but in TypeScript you do. In TypeScript, you define the API. And then when you implement the API, you can implement it for any backside you want. And it allows you to leave the front side totally alone and only change the front side code base when you change the implementation for the backside. So that's point one. Point two, have you visited Kialo?
Oh yeah, Kialo, yeah. And Kialo is, yeah, there was a long time ago before I really started working on it, or like I had that somebody was like, that idea you had, I think somebody's done it. And I looked at it and I was and it was exciting because it's very similar to what I was kind of imagining. But then there's certain differences on mine that I was like, well, I think it's still worth making mine because it's significantly different than Kialo in a bunch of ways. But yeah, Kialo is one of the most similar things to what I'm
And
doing. And I guess it's also similar to what a lot of people in this group
yeah,
are.
I give Kialo high points for what I call absolutely beautiful presentation. And they have a lot of little features that are subtle to most people. But when you dig into the little summaries that they give you, and it's not AI generated summaries, but it's little tree structures that show you how the flow is going.
Huh.
I mean, that's really powerful. Now, there's another platform coming online. It's online now. It's called Because,
Huh.
BCAUSE.app. And I am told that it will eventually be open source. And it's coming out of a lab that both Marc Antoine and I have worked with at the Open University in Milton in the UK. And it was commissioned by our Office of Naval Research for the Navy. And it's a pro-con with AI summaries. Okay. And so, but in that same group, earlier, they came out with one called debatehub.net. And I believe it's debate-hub.net. And while it's not at GitHub, the website will link you to a download for the entire platform, and it's written in PHP.
Debatehub.net.
Debate-hub.net, I'm pretty sure. Did you get it?
Oh, it might just be debatehub.net.
Maybe
There's
it's,
something called debatehub.net.
Where's
uh,
the link to Because again? Can't find it.
did you
Anyway.
find Cause?
No, I found the wrong link. I'm looking.
Maybe just the letter B and then cause
That's it.
.app.
You're right. Yeah, got
Not
it.
because,
Thanks.
because.
That one.
Yep, that's it. And the app
Am I?
itself is online at because.app.
Oh, yeah, very interesting.
And so you're in good company. There's no question about it. But I'm stating a personal opinion, strongly held. Society will not benefit from always thinking they're in a debate where somebody has to win.
Yeah. I mean, that is one of the downsides, but yeah.
Absolutely.
And
That's what I said.
I have been trying to make it so
versus values. Facts versus values. In a value system, as long as you're not in a toxic value system, there's many valid point of views, and you have to be open.
That's the point.
But in a truth situation, in a fact situation, yeah, well, there is a right answer.
Well, I certainly have not. I've been trying to, not have the voting be. The voting is important because you want to know which one of your points, your counterpoints, is strongest and what should get voted up. But
is accepted,
that's
or which ones you need to defend. Yes.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I've been, yeah, I don't want it to be, I don't know if, yeah, my goal is to not have it be like a who wins this. I mean, I guess in any kind of one-on-one debate, there's going to be a little bit of that idea. Like if you see, like a live debate, there's that feeling of they're both trying to win, or whatever. But yeah, I'm, I would at least want to like let people know like voting doesn't mean that somebody's winning or not, because if you have more points than the response or whatever, because it's just very easy to game
the
that.
system.
Yeah, and
So then why have voting?
because it's good to know which of your counterpoints are strongest, so you can swap one of your counterpoints off for a different one.
Mark Klein actually made the point that people are better at downvoting than voting. They're better at attributing lemons than stars, and that's an actual experimental result of his. And it's useful. Like if somebody thinks your argument is shit, well, okay, I have to go back to the drawing board. If people think your argument is good, it's more a sign of agreeability than quality. But if they think it's shit, there's disagreeability, but it could be quality, and you at least have something to do.
I also have been like not putting like I could go further, but I right now I'm not putting right now you don't see the votes at all on there, but that's in progress. I'm making that happen, but you wouldn't see them like how everybody voted immediately. You have to kind of dig in to find that. And in theory, I could make it so that you don't see those at the like I could make it so that the votes are all relative to the one user, and it doesn't show it's not like a number of likes. It's just compared to other points that this person has made, where does this stack up? And so if I really was, yeah, the more, if I'm really concerned about it feeling like a voting like that kind of thing, then I might do that, if that makes sense.
Tom?
I would submit that that two deep abstractions that Marc-Antoine is referring to, but that I like to call the evidence-based, basically evidence-based workflows and values-based workflows. These are two relatively separable, quite separable perspectives and kinds of engagement that we want to need to have with the information processing that we engage in. But the work I'm doing is very much in support of the amalgamation of evidence-based and values-based workflows so that it's
Interesting.
possible to engage with both kinds of phenomena in a single overarching workflow. And so voting is really in effect a kind of the I don't want to sorry, the word that comes to mind is degenerate. It's the lowest level
Yeah.
of expression with respect to values-based workflows. So it's kind of a tacit, what votes are tacit, that is unspoken, and about the values that are being engaged in the expression of the vote. So if all you've got is voting, then you're basically kind of ignoring the detail of why.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
No, yeah,
So,
but there is also a balance between simplicity
of course, of course.
but I understand that there's definitely, yeah, it is missing that thing. Like, and
Yeah.
I think Marc-Antoine was talking about that earlier too and stuff, and so somebody was.
Yeah. So that's why I'm trying to make sure that the tech that I build has a full, rich, perpetual workflow about evidence processing. As the evidence amasses, then we should be able to, continue our processing about the evidence-based perspective. And as our values evolve, and as our comprehension of our own decision-making processes and so on, as our comprehension of our own values with respect to the subject matter at the subject at hand evolve, then our values, then our evaluation of the material at hand can progress, can evolve too. And so we basically, all of that processing, we already do. We already do all of that kind of processing in our handling of every issue, but we don't have any bookkeeping support for it. Right? It all just happens in say it with me, our private mental models, right? And so I would submit that for us to be able to engage in the societal scale, evidence-based workflows and values-based workflows that we need to be able to engage in to be able to deal with societal scale issues, we need tooling to support those processes. So that's why I would submit that basically anything short of tooling that supports those issues isn't really going to be able to make much of a dent in the problem spaces that are essentially of existential import. We've got existential issues, AI,
Yeah.
climate, nukes, authoritarianism,
Yeah.
et cetera, right?
Propaganda.
We've got things that are coming for us real
Yeah.
hard and fast. And so we need to address those at societal scale. And to be able to do so, we need tech support to do those challenging evidence-based and values-based integrations across our collective understandings. Over.
Oh, you're muted.
Jack?
Um, I'm going to second what Sean said and also what Marc Antoine typed in the chat room. And make a summary statement of my own, and then it's time for me to leave. All you have to do is go on YouTube and watch the Rachel Maddow show and realize that here in the colonies, we're in deep shit,
Yeah.
really deep shit. We literally have an orange baboon who thinks that he's King Lear and he's going to run the country his way, including how we get our medicine and all the rest. And yeah, we've got to fix that. And I'm going to be blunt, David, with no challenge to you, but just I don't think debating is the way forward. Getting us to talk,
Yeah.
asking us what are your worldviews and how did you come to them is critical. If I ask a right winger and a left winger to come into a room and it's called a debate room, we already know it's going nowhere because they're both right.
Yeah.
There's no question about it. It's just, but if I ask a right winger and a left winger to come in and sit and talk civilly about their feelings and where they're coming from, they tend to begin to see things they didn't see before in the other side. Now, the example of that is when Jeff Conklin would go into a very wicked town hall meeting and do a dialogue map on a screen displayed in front of them. They were so busy yelling at each other that they never looked at the screen. And then he would stop them and he would say, okay, would you look at the chart, the graph that I've made, and tell me if I have captured what it is you were saying? That's all it took. And frequently as not, somebody in the room will say, God damn, Joe, I didn't realize that is what you were thinking. And it's that subtle bit of moving their heads over to a liminal space and getting them away from the debate going on, that they actually drop into a new kind of listening mode through their eyes, not their ears.
Mhm.
And so fundamentally, I believe that civil conversations around the planet, among people around the planet, not just your neighbors, you start there, but then you federate with the people in other neighborhoods. And if you look at what they were saying, you begin to see things you didn't think of. Because what they're saying is now a liminal space for you. You get to see it. And when you start having people in France and Germany and Holland and Denmark talking with people in places in Canada and places in here in the colonies and in Mexico and whatever, they begin to see things they didn't think of. And that's the universe of discourse in which I choose to operate. Now, I don't
Yeah.
want to take anything away from what you're doing, but if I could, I would try and steer you in a broader. I would love to see what your creative brain could do in a conversation space and not a debate space. That would be my challenge to you.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's nice. Yeah, the idea of a conversation space is, I mean, yeah, it's a nice, yeah, I like that. Yeah, the sentiment. I, I don't know exactly what that would look like, and if you made an app like that, but, um,
Not
I
that
do
much
think,
more than what you did. Really.
yeah,
You get to add new node types.
yeah, yeah. I think there could be variations also that, if I really wanted to make it a thing that helped resolve conflicts between two people, I could make different rules where it's like, before you get to respond, you have to have a no that reiterates what they said and in a way that they approve of, and then you like, okay, you know what I mean? You could make certain rules, and at some point I thought maybe I could do something like that, but I don't know. That's kind of down the road, or I don't know. But yeah, like really focusing on not having it be confrontational, I think is maybe I'll try to make it less confrontational but
Trust me, a
but I do think that even um like if you see so sorry, Sean, should I
well,
I'll-
you and I are still finishing a debate
okay.
you and I
Finish.
started, and then Sean gets his turn.
Okay, well, I was just going to say that I think that even in the when you see someone that represents you politically on media that doesn't represent you, and they're debating somebody, you know, Bernie Sanders on Fox News or something like that, something, and you're like, oh, this will be a good chance for my person to get their word out to other people because they're debating somebody and it'll be watched by other people. But the thing is, though, is live debate is so uh like pointless because it's just so there's so many problems with live debate that I know you guys are aware of because I saw the white paper. I read it, but uh that it's never satisfying. But I think if you took away all the problems with the live debate, then you could at least have I would be interested in seeing how, like, if you could kind of get people in a place where they're really considering other points of views that they didn't think of before.
Well, so just I want you to keep in mind that a conversation tree technically includes 4 major node types: questions, answers, and pro and con arguments, and reference links.
Yeah, I definitely need gonna at some point I'm gonna have the way to do
Okay, I'm going to run, and thank you all for this. David, I like talking to you. This is a good one.
Thanks. Yeah, well, I appreciate all the feedback. It's nice talking to people. I mean, just in general, even when I was just reading through when I stumbled upon Canonical Debate Lab and I was reading through the white paper, it was very satisfying just to see people thinking about things I was thinking about, and so it's nice talking about these issues.
And Bentley, I hope you get well soon. We need you back.
Sean?
Oh, it would be great to not lose Jack for just oh, there we go. Yeah, just a couple quick points. One is yeah, I would like to endorse the Jack's
Distinction.
mention of some skepticism about the debate modality. And in fact, I take issue with the entire like the convening that this group has, the convening of debate at the core. I've just shared a link to a goofy little collection of videos that might warm the cockles of your heart as you think about how it is that that mammals interact with one another. It's a collection of fence fighting videos. What do I mean by this? It's dogs barking at one another through fences. And even when the gate is open, and there's a 4-inch piece of fence that the dogs can manage to find to bark at one another about or through, then that is enough. That is enough fence. That is enough division between them for them to have something to fight about. Okay. And so my point here is that we are no less a fence fighting species than puppy dogs are. Okay. At all. Okay. And so the framing of debate is it is
Part of the problem.
engineered to be unresolvable because it directly engages circuitry in our mammalian selves about that. And it might even be older circuitry, of course. Okay. Little fishes do it too, right? So yeah, truly, you've got to please, I invite you to take a look at the fence fighting videos. Okay. And then reflect on whether debate forcing the framing of fence fighting is really the path forward. Okay.
The what Jack was trying to say is in IBIS conversation trees, you can just add a new question at any point. And that already changes the dynamic a bit. That you're saying, oh, is that true? Or why do you believe that? Or, kind of reframe the debate at another level. It's not just pro con, pro con, pro con. Oh, what about the ability? And that changes. That's a small change. Is it enough? I'm not sure. There's a lot to say about. I mean, I think we all spend a lot of time reading about how people, what gets people to get out of the antagonistic dynamic, right? It's not easy. Great, yes, finite games indeed. There were interesting experimental results. There's a little book called How Minds Change, which is very pseudoscientific, but it does point to interesting experiments. And one of them was about epistemology in the street, where people go around asking people, okay, what do you believe about X? And what led you to that? And get them to retrace the steps of experiences, personal experiences that led them to a certain system of belief. And retracing this origin helps them loosen it. Already, do you still, now that you've thought about it and why you believe that, do you still hold to that as much? And then people are a bit open to reconsider. If you say it's wrong, forget it. You're getting into the antagonistic dynamic. But if you ask them why is that so important to you, then people are from a position of examination and perspective. That changes the dynamic. One thing I want to do, which is more intellectual, that's very personal, it takes time, doesn't scale, but it's still fascinating. I mean, what are the dynamics of helping people step back? I very much want people to make it a point and a practice of asking, if there's a debate about this, it's, okay, what would be the mechanism by which you might know it's true? What is the kind of epistemological grounding or the values grounding? And same thing with the values. Would this position make sense with those values? Or what if those were your important values? Would that change things? So the turn taking at what are the values and experiences that led you somewhere, I think changes the dynamic a lot. Bentley.
Yeah, so Sean, just to mention that we're not precious about the word debate. It's just a historical artifact. So, although I do see,
you take my point though, right? That I hear why you're saying that, and I agree. But at the same time, the framing is everything. Over.
yes, yeah. So if someone was creating an app, an external facing app, then we would not suggest them using the word debate. Although there are a few times where those same base triggers can be useful. So I see in the majority of cases, it's not a good framing, but there are a few cases where, well, there's a few cases where you have to be binary in order to make a decision. And there's a few cases where those kind of argumentative forced through a structure can be useful, but those are the exceptions to the rule. So yeah. But the word
Yeah,
debate
so often it's about
the
sorry.
word debate has a lot of definitions, but I understand that you're saying that a way a lot of people just using that word, and also the common framings, two people standing at a podium and stuff like that, or two people opposing heads on a news show, trigger people into a less
Tribal.
cognitive station. And that's definitely something we recognize.
No, totally. Words matter. Trade-offs is a word that we need to have more often in the public conversation. Like in a reasonable public conversation, it's like, what's the trade-off between this and that?
Yeah.
Of course,
I mean, I
those are
guess
scant.
in theory, I could make it, create a new discussion. And, and these points that you're making, they could be questions. They're not, yeah. But I do feel like people are going to think of it as a debate. I mean, debate is probably what most people, there's,
Yes, and the question is how to lead them away from there.
yeah.
That's the design task.
Yeah.
And
I have to go.
Okay,
Sorry.
yeah. I guess.
and that's why for me the phrasing, the terminology collaborative cognition is where I've ended up landing, because
Bye, Mark.
because I think it tries to capture the spirit of what it seems like we need to be able to do together, right?
Yep.
And
Yeah, love it.
yeah.
So,
And is supportive of the Hegelian process of synthesis that might take us to new places too, right?
Yeah.
Because what does it? And your point is excellent, that there are Bentley, that there are domains of human interaction and sense making where it's critical that one does come to a conclusion at a time, right? So
Yeah.
physics isn't one of those, right? We keep chipping away and coming up with new, new evidence and new hypotheses, right? But a court case and deciding on passing a piece of legislation or not, those are two examples. Well, and when you build a building, well,
Yeah.
you need to get started and you need to finish, right? So you need to have some clarity about what you're doing, right? So there's temporal closure that is part of the contextualization for some kinds of sense-making operations, and as a consequence, an end is and a process that produces them is critical. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and
Thanks,
close out
guys.
the meeting, but feel free to continue any of these conversations in the
Okay.
Discord channel.
All right. Well, thanks for the
Take care.
conversation.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.